Hey everybody, this is Bob Crossen, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest, and today I am here with a full room of people. We have Itai Dadon, Head of Smart Cities and IoT for Itron. We also have Mark Saris, he's the CTO for Utility Systems Science and Software, or US Cubed. And we also have Antonio Cotarelo, Water and Sewer Deputy Director for Miami-Dade County. Cool. So thank you guys all for being on the call today. We have a lot to get through. I wanted to talk specifically about a project that you guys had done with IoT smart systems in Miami-Dade. Could you tell me just a little bit kind of what the background of this project is? What kind of brought this to the forefront?
Well, in Miami-Dade County, we have an ordinance called the Volume Sewer Customer Ordinance, or VSCO, that requires water and sewer to measure nighttime flows, which are flows in sewer pipelines between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. To determine I&I, infiltration and inflow, into our pipelines. We have to, or under this ordinance, we are required to submit a report at the end of the testing period, or on an annual basis, that identifies the basins that do not meet the threshold of 5,000 GPDIM. So if they're higher, we have to report these basins, and these basins basically go into what we call a moratorium. This moratorium prevents development in these basins until such time as the issue has been cleared, has been resolved, which has, of course, a huge economic impact to development in the area, to the department and the county in general, and fees that are not realized. And in general, politically, is not good at all. So the problem with this ordinance was a level of effort that our staff was having to spend in implementing and measuring these flows. So as a result, two of our most genius guys here, Oscar Vasquez and Carlos Castro, along with a few other companies, thinking out of the box, measured or developed a system to measure flows in pipelines, in the flows just before the basin, that would, by comparing that sewage flow continuously for a 72-hour period, we would end deducting the potable water flow or water consumption in these basins. They would be able to then deduct and determine what is real I&I in these pipes. To give you a size, why is this important in Miami-Dade County? We have a very flat county. So we have over 1,058 pump stations and their respective basins. And we have 50 to 70 basins a year that fall under this category.
Wow. Okay. So scale of this is pretty large.
Very large. Yes.
Yeah. So how did, what types of systems then, in terms of the smarts and stuff, were implemented here, and how did that interact?
So what we did is that we installed a wireless meter in the sewer, the last pipe basically coming into the pump station, in order to measure the sewage flows going into that basin, and ended up comparing it to the potable water that was consumed by those buildings during that period of time between midnight and 5 a.m. To be able to measure the real-time flow, or again I&I, because it's you would measure sewage flows, deduct water flows, that would leave you with actual infiltration into the piping system.
Gotcha. So what are some of the roles that these smart systems can play for utilities like yours? How could that be implemented for other ones in other areas of the country as well?
Oh, this is it has a huge impact. The process was implemented fairly, uh, I don't want to say effortlessly, but fairly easily. As a consequence, we reduced the number of trips that our crews were going in order to implement and retrieve the systems, and troubleshoot it from an average of 5 trips per basin down to 2 trips per basin. So it frees a lot of your staff's time. It gives you better data because it's continuous data that you're able to choose the periods of that data that show no irregularities. It prevents sewage overflows and because you're able to monitor the levels in the pipeline, and you know that as water levels increase in the pipeline, you can deploy staff to go out there and try to prevent the sewage overflow. It identifies breaks when all of a sudden you have flows increasing without any good justification at certain times of the day. You can tell that you have a defect, a pipe break, a crack that is allowing a lot of groundwater into the pipelines. The other thing to understand is that in Miami-Dade County, we're very flat and very low land elevation. So our groundwater table is on average 5 to 7 feet below the land surface. A lot of our pipes are underwater, especially during the wet season. And we can have peak flows of over 2 anytime we have one of these, when we have a storm, for example, as we recently did, causing tremendous flows into our plants.
Mhm. So what were some of the challenges that had to be overcome for this project? Itai and Mark, do you have things from your side with implementation and whatnot that you could speak to?
What in this particular project, what makes it unique is that you will find, say, for Miami-Dade or for uh, actually cities, throughout the United States, actually North America, Canada, or Mexico, they already had instrumentation in place. And so this is a classic smart city application where they have instrumentation. Typically, the utility will get into their Ford F-150 truck and go out to the site and go get the data. And so with a very small implementation, we were able to attach a smart city device onto that device and get that back into their SCADA system and get that into their analytic program that they already had existing. So rather than doing something manually, we basically automated it all through a smart city implementation. Um, so the key in doing any smart city application, as far as we're concerned, is there was no troubleshooting out on site. We knew the instrumentation, we knew the hardware manufacturers. Everything was tested beforehand in the shop. All the software, all the APIs, everything was pre-configured, 100% operational before we ever showed up, in Miami. And so it really was a pop and go where because everything's already operational,
Mhm.
everything's already pre-configured, ready to go. What was fantastic with Miami-Dade is through Oscar's group, they the crews were already in place. Everybody was in place. Everybody was completely scheduled to make this happen. Everyone showed up on time at 7 a.m., when it's nice and cool in Miami, because, heat and traffic in Miami, it's tough. And so because we had already pre-set up all of the hardware, all the instrumentation, all the software, the configuration, and absolutely everything, crews were in place, on time, on schedule, showing up, and literally it was a team effort from the hardware manufacturers, the software people, on the communication side, and of course, the binder of all of this is the utility, which is Miami-Dade. So it just could not have gone more smoothly. We were literally we were able to install an entire system within a couple days.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys really put a lot of effort into reducing the barrier to implementation on this one.
Yes, what you would not want to do, and what some people may try to do is, let's say, buy some hardware or a modem or something like this, and try to do configuration on site.
Hmm.
Anybody with experience in doing SCADA systems and wireless SCADA systems and wireless implementations, and specifically Itron probably has the largest smart city footprint in the world, because it's a worldwide operation. They have a lot of experience in implementing quickly a smart city solution.
Yeah,
That's right.
Itai, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's first of all, thank you. It's Mark. I think it's a testimony to the approach that we take in the fact that we do not see ourselves as a vendor of technology that we throw across the fence, right? It's a true partnership, and it's a partnership that goes for decades, at least with the cities that we work with around the world, and this is just another great example of that partnerships, and in this case a triangle of partnerships together with a lot of innovation coming in from US Cubed and Mark Serra's team. But first of all, I think I want to recognize the drive for innovation from the Miami-Dade County, right? Because that's where it all starts. Because it's not us private sector pushing, it's really recognizing a need, coming up with innovative ideas and creative ideas of how to solve these with technologies that we can bring into play, and then maximizing the chances that everything will work as supposed to be working with all the things that Mark mentioned. I think that one thing that is extremely important is that when we hear about projects like this, we really want to make sure that we create a significant impact on the community, and in this case, on the community of Miami-Dade. And that impact, we heard about economic benefits, but of course, there's such a large variety of benefits that go across also the environmental aspects here. By preventing these overflows, that we're creating a real health benefit for the community of Miami-Dade, and of course societal benefits as well, right, in terms of improving the quality of life in the community there in Miami-Dade. So this trifecta of benefits across economic, societal, and environmental is extremely important for us, and that's really what we believe creates the value that justifies taking technology and putting it in place. One last comment that I will make, Bob, is that I believe that we're only in the early days of understanding how beneficial the data that we're getting from these wireless systems is going to be. We're solving one specific problem today, but we're getting real-time data from those systems that I'm sure that as we learn more out of what we'll find more benefits and more things that we can do, and with more insights that we can drive out of that data. So this is a future-proof benefit also for the community.
Yeah, so I wanted to bounce back to Antonio. We ran an article about this in March, in our March issue. At the time, I believe that the first phase had been around completed. How are things going for you guys now? You talked a little bit about some results, and what are the next steps that you have to accomplish here?
Well, I think that the next phase, of course, it will be to get more equipment so that we can deploy this system at a larger scale. We plan to use the system also to evaluate force mains, evaluate and monitor force mains. One of the things Itai and Mark mentioned is the impact of the sewage overflows in an area like Miami, where we're known for our beaches and waterways in general. every time we have a sewage overflow that ends up in a body of water, whether it's a landlocked lake or the bay, but especially the bay, the impact, the economic impact, and overall political impact is really bad.
Mhm.
A system like this, as Itai was saying, basically can give us real-time data 24 hours a day, where we can monitor, pipe breaks, monitor blockages first, any pipe breaks, basically by noticing that I&I is increasing without any explanation. We are able, of course, to measure real-time I&I. All of this will have the consequences of reducing the possibilities of an SSO, a sanitary sewage overflow. We have in Dade County about 3,200 miles of gravity sewer lines and 980 miles of force mains. It's a huge system.
Yeah.
Again, the level of effort is reduced tremendously when I say from 5 trips per case, reducing it to 2 trips. That is when you're only considering this ordinance that I was mentioning, the VSCO ordinance, that was the reason to create this. But when you extrapolate this to real-time, 24 hours a day measurement of flows and pipes and I&I, the impacts are much, much greater. The
Yeah.
benefits that we get from this are much, much greater.
Yeah, and that kind of dovetails into what my final question was, which is kind of like, what obstacles do you guys foresee in the future? And it sounds mostly like just implementing at scale is going to be one of the primary challenges here.
Well, we were talking, Mark and I, and we had a prior conversation where they were saying it was a little boring in the sense that it was not challenging. We were able to implement everything very easily. And the reason for it is because we have the technology. We have different technologies that piecing them together has allowed us to do this relatively effortlessly, or at least much more efficiently than we would have thought. So I think it's a very good system. The goal is to implement it throughout our system as much as possible. As any utility, we have to fund it and we have to deploy it slowly. But that is the goal that we have at this point, to implement it with obvious benefits in its implementation. I think the savings will outweigh the costs.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to acknowledge one person who's not here on this conversation today is the Avanti company, Avanti Corporation, and Eric Corey specifically on helping organize, getting a whole group of different people together. So it really is a team effort, and I won't say it's a boring project, but it just could not have gone smoother. And to expand it, it really does need to be based on the benefit to the citizens of Miami-Dade County, the environmental impact, which goes hand in hand, and then of course for the city is to save money doing it. So if we can get the holy grail of being able to take care of the millions and tens of millions of tourists that come to Miami, they come to Miami Beach and they want to have absolutely pure, clean water when they go in that. That's what we're talking about. And so, yeah, it's just a fantastic project.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I do appreciate you guys taking the time. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on before we dropped off the call?
I would take the opportunity to join Mark in thanking both the county and Avanti as well. And I wanted to add that I think we touched on it, but this technology is really quite generic and applicable to many other counties and sewage systems across the U.S. and U.S. cubed and Itron have done it elsewhere as well. But I think we can take a look at how the execution was done here and understand how we adopted the solution specifically to the needs of the county here. And that expertise definitely is something that we know how to replicate and replicate at scale. So I'm very, very excited about taking it to across America, everywhere else that's needed.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing other projects kind of like it. So.
And we had, this went very well. We worked very well with everybody involved. So, you know, thank you to everyone as well for the level of cooperation we had.
Yeah.
And thank you to you, Bob, for this interview.
Yeah, well, thank you for being on the call. I appreciate it.